Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for the second half hour of News 4 Nightly. Here are some of the top stories that we're following for you tonight. Well, we have an update on the investigation into a dog that died after its owner says it ingested water at El Dorado Beach in South Lake Tahoe last month. News 4 Sophie Lincoln has been following this story and brings us this exclusive interview with the owner.
After the California Water Board said last month that there were no toxins at two Lake Tahoe beaches, the final death determination for the dog who died, Cora, suggests the possibility that there may have been toxins there before the samples were collected. Cora's case went viral after her owner, Anais Felt, posted about her case to TikTok, where she claims Cora died just hours after ingesting toxic algae at a Lake Tahoe beach. About a week later, the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Board and the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection collected water samples from El Dorado Beach, where Felt says her dog ingested the toxins, but those samples came back non-detect for cyanotoxins, according to a release from the California Water Resources Control Board. Now, the investigating agencies say in a statement provided to us by Felt that after a, quote, thorough review of the veterinary diagnosis, site visits, and a public health assessment, the determination was made that Cora's death, quote, met the CDC's criteria for an animal harmful algal bloom associated case, end quote.
They conducted a very thorough 3-week investigation into Cora's death to determine if it was a HAB-related event or a harmful algae bloom-related event. And they determined that it was indeed a HAB event.
While the agencies involved weren't able to answer questions specific to this case due to what they say are privacy policies, Felt offered an explanation she says the toxicologist gave her about the discrepancy between the two reports. According to the water results, cyanotoxins were not present in the samples. However, cyanobacteria was.
The bacteria can very quickly shift into becoming a toxin given the right conditions, specifically heat, nutrient, light. And when Cora was in the water, there was a heat wave.
Felt provided our team with these water sampling results where you can see two types of cyanobacteria were present in small amounts. The statement also says the case will be reported to the CDC's National Tracking Database for Harmful Algal Blooms. California's map has now a floating bloom general awareness advisory, as you can see, but those advisories have not been put back up at the beach itself, despite the agency saying in its statement that they would have the signs at the beach for the rest of the summer. I've reached out to the Water Board about this and will keep you updated if that changes. Reporting in the studio, Sophie Lincoln.
And News 4 obtained court documents that reveal more details about the death of a child in Cold Springs, resulting in the arrest of her father. News 4 Sophie Lincoln has new information and joins us live in studio with more on this. And Sophie, disturbing details here to break through.
Andrea, definitely upsetting. The probable cause documents from the Washoe County Sheriff's Office reveal deputies noticed, quote, a lot of signs of trauma on the 5-year-old girl. Just a warning to our viewers, the details of this case may be disturbing for some. Viewer discretion is advised. Details from court documents are revealing a troubling story of the 5-year-old girl who died in Cold Springs Thursday and the importance of reporting potential child abuse to authorities while you still can. According to those documents, Washoe County Sheriff's deputies responded to a home on Crystal Canyon Boulevard at around 7 a.m. on Thursday, where they say they found the young girl unresponsive in a bedroom upstairs, lying next to, quote, a tiny mattress with no bed frame.
Anytime you see an injury on a child that's, in a suspicious area, if a child seems timid of their parent or caregiver, if they're not showing up to school or they're coming to school, they don't look clean, they don't look cared for, because abuse it's not always just abuse. There's neglect as well that occurs.
In the documents, deputies report the little girl had suffered severe trauma across her body, including oral trauma, bruising on her face, pelvis, hips, and biceps, and on her genitals, among other injuries. 35-year-old Nicholas Loving, the little girl's father, was arrested on scene and is now in the Washoe County Jail.
There are a lot of signs of abuse, but there's also sometimes where there's no signs of abuse, and it's based on what observations people are seeing.
In the documents, deputies also report conflicting accounts from Loving and his wife Andrea. While Nicholas Loving denied ever hitting, spanking, shoving, or kicking his daughter, his wife told detectives that she recently saw Nicholas kick their daughter in the genitals and drag her by the collar up the stairs. In a statement shared to X, Washoe County Sheriff Darren Balaam called the case, quote, unimaginable and heartbreaking, also writing in part, quote, our hearts are heavy for the loss of such a young, innocent life. As we all mourn this tragedy, we will remain steadfast in our commitment to justice, end quote. A bail hearing has been set for Loving on Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. And if you suspect any instances of child abuse in the community, you're encouraged to call this number on your screen. The investigation is ongoing, and anyone with information is urged to contact the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. There's also a candlelight vigil that will be held for the young girl this Friday at 5:30 p.m. at 3385 White Lake Parkway in Reno. Live in the studio, Sophie Lincoln, News 4. Northern California is one of the nation's hot spots for missing and murdered Indigenous cases, likely because it remains home to numerous tribal nations. You can see behind me is a map of some of the missing Indigenous persons cases just from the past 10 years. And a couple of these names should be familiar to locals on the North Coast due to the impact those cases have had in our area.
No more stolen relatives! No more stolen relatives! No more!
5 years to the day since local Indigenous woman Khadija Britton was last seen, hundreds of tribal members gathered at the state capitol in a day of action addressing the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples crisis in the region.
There's over 300 people listed, and that's not just York specific, it's Northern California Native populations.
Of those more than 300 missing Indigenous people, Britton's case, as well as the cases of Emily Risling and others, have rocked the Northern California community.
Investigate the disappearance of a missing Indigenous woman.
Another attempt at finding Khadija Britton.
Marks 1 year since Emily Risling was last seen by the public.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention classifies the MMIP crisis as an epidemic, one that is particularly bad here in Northern California. But the victims of this epidemic are more than statistics, especially for their family members.
My grandmother, Georgina Kiesner, she was murdered in the 70s.
For many Indigenous families, cases like that of Ipina's grandmother have slipped through the cracks due to what some say is a lack of attention from law enforcement.
There's historic mistrust in police, so she didn't go get help and ultimately left to let her. She ended up getting murdered.
Now, the Yurok tribe aims to help prevent this going forward by hiring its own MMIP investigator tasked with solving the region's cold cases.
There are like thousands of bodies that are in the unidentified database.
The tribe hopes that DNA tracking will help the investigator give some of those bodies their names back, while also working the cases of those who have not yet been found. The new investigator was hired by the tribe using grant funding, one of the latest in a number of initiatives the Yurok tribe leaders have made in the past couple years to address this crisis.
The triggering moment was Emily Risling going missing on the reservation. When this crisis is happening around you, it feels like it's someone else's household or it's someone else's reservation, but that was just so close to home. And I think we just, we had to do something.
The Yurok tribe recently requested a $200 million budget for the state of California to use toward addressing the MMIP crisis. Tribal leaders are also currently pushing legislation that would give tribal police officers the same status as peace officers in California, so they're able to better respond to the tribe's needs. These are just a couple of the several legal initiatives the Yurok tribe is spearheading to address the overwhelming numbers of missing and murdered Indigenous people in our region. We'll have a more in-depth breakdown of what the tribe is doing on our website tonight. That's KAEFTV.com. This month, as hundreds of Indigenous people marched, prayed, and sang to raise awareness of missing and murdered Indigenous persons, the question has remained, why is this happening and what can be done to stop it? In an attempt to answer the first part of this question, I've spoken with more than a dozen tribal members, law enforcement personnel, and legislators, and there doesn't appear to be one consistent reason for why Indigenous people go missing or are murdered at such disproportionate rates.
My brother was murdered 5 years ago in Sacramento. This is my son's uncle. This is my uncle, Pete. And he's my dad.
But one issue that consistently came up in my conversations is Public Law 280.
In Public Law 280 states, the sheriff is compelled to enforce state laws on the tribe.
The law exists in just 6 states, and California is one of them. As a result, California tribes are forced to rely on the sheriff's office to enforce state law on the reservation.
Now you have county sheriffs, local jurisdictions, that are now entrusted to provide that public safety with lack of resources or funding.
Kind of on the reservation or off the reservation, and nobody except family has really looked for him.
For many tribes in rural areas, this issue is even larger.
Those response times have been an issue my entire career at the sheriff's office here.
To address this issue, some local sheriff's offices, including Humboldt County, are cross-deputizing tribal police officers so they have the status of a deputy while still being a part of tribal law enforcement. Similarly, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office is offering a bonus for a deputy position in Covelo, where the Round Valley Indian Tribes Reservation is located.
This shouldn't be left to California's First People and the governments, the tribal governments that are there, to have to be creative here in the year 2023 for public safety.
That's why in 2019, Assemblyman James Ramos introduced Assembly Bill 44.
Area chiefs also support that bill. We want to see tribal police be recognized as state peace officers.
On May 19th, AB 44 passed in the state assembly, and it's now headed to the state senate. But of course, passing this bill is just one small step in addressing the many factors that have caused the MMIP crisis.
This is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg to bring this issue full force and bringing awareness to it.
We treat threats against schools very seriously, so we tend to detain those kids until they go in front of the court.
Threat after threat of violence at North Coast schools reveals a disturbing pattern that seems to be mirrored across the country. At least 3 recent threats of school violence were reported at Arcata and Fortuna high schools since the 2022 school year started this fall. Local police were able to identify each of the minors responsible for the 3 threatening messages, but ultimately determined there was no real danger at any of those campuses. ABC 23's Sophie Lincoln spoke to local law enforcement experts about potential causes of this nationwide trend. She joins us live from Fortuna High School. Sophie, what can you tell us?
Well, Michael, 2 of the 3 cases you mentioned happened here at Fortuna High School. Now, I was able to speak with Fortuna Chief of Police Casey Day about what appears to be a pattern with these cases. He told me that while the 3 cases in Humboldt appear to be isolated, there are potential other explanations for this trend both in Humboldt County and across the nation.
The school is in lockdown. The school is in lockdown. The school is in lockdown. The school is in lockdown.
In the past month, at least 3 separate threats of school violence have revealed a disturbing trend in Humboldt County.
It's hard not to say that there's been a pattern because we've had 2 like incidences here in the city of Fortuna in a very short amount of time, and additionally the incident in Arcata a few weeks ago.
The 3 cases led investigators to arrest 3 minors for making the threats via social media. Officials do not believe the cases are related, but their similarities are a cause for concern among those that work with juvenile offenders.
The only way you really know is if you go through and you assess it, investigate it, and determine sort of what you have as a fact pattern.
According to data from the Humboldt County District Attorney's Office, the percentage of juvenile criminal threats cases filed by the district attorney more than doubled between 2021 and 2022, and this year isn't even over yet. Data from the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office reveals the overall number of criminal threats arrests spiked in 2020, the same year that the COVID-19 pandemic hit.
I think it does speak back to that whole thing about our young people are under a lot of stress. They've come out of COVID. They're going back to school. There's a lot of stress and pressure there.
This uptick is not isolated to Humboldt County, as officials have seen an increase in school violence threats primarily made by minors across the nation. Officials say another contributing factor could be social media use. The 3 recent threats in Humboldt County, as well as many of the threats across the nation, were carried out over social media. And there has even been mention of a TikTok challenge where middle and high school students post the hoax threats as part of this disturbing social media trend.
These are situations where they're not funny. It's, not a prank. It's not something that, law enforcement in this region is not going to take seriously. We are going to act.
Brenneman says there are various community intervention programs at Juvenile Hall where youth like the ones who sent out these threats can participate in. Now, whether they participate in those programs or if they go to court for sentencing depends on the individual cases. Michael, back to you.
Yeah, and we can't stress enough how serious these types of threats can be. Good continuous reporting there, Sophie, live in Fortuna for us tonight.
Centro del Pueblo's Sanctuary Garden in Arcata has struggled to live up to its name due to frequent acts of vandalism that appear to be fueled by hate.
We are not lowering our guard. We want to be attentive. We want to be mindful that this can be not the end for the hate crimes.
Since its creation in 2021, Centro del Pueblo has reported about 10 acts of vandalism at its sanctuary garden.
Because these actions appeared to be based in bias against national origin, the incidents were classified by APD as hate crimes and were assigned to the APD Investigations Unit for follow-up.
In June, after yet another vandalism, Centro del Pueblo and supporters marched to an Arcata City Council meeting where they demanded the city do something to support the organization and take a stand against further acts of hate.
Thanks to our campaign for a safety network that we direct to the Arcata City Council, we have a good contribution from the city and we get to purchase more cameras, high-definition cameras.
The new security cameras Centro del Pueblo was able to purchase are significant, as cheaper, lower-definition cameras that the garden previously had actually caught one of the acts on tape. But due to the low quality of that video, police have not been able to identify the suspect in it and are stuck at a standstill in their investigation. Would you say it's kind of stagnant right now?
Yeah, it is. No physical evidence has been available for us to process. And so the case is suspended pending future leads. If any future leads arise, they will be investigated.
In the meantime, Perez hopes a fundraiser will allow the organization to do more to protect the sanctuary garden and its purpose to provide a safe space for immigrants.
He grabs me and he grabs my hair right here and pulls me, and I'm like, yo, what the hell?
Hoopa Valley tribal police officers are being investigated for claims of excessive force during a recent arrest. The investigation comes after videos like this one you see right here began to circulate on social media, with family demanding justice for the man under arrest. Good evening and thank you for being here for North Coast News at 10 on this Wednesday. I'm Michael Patterson. Dania Romero and Austin Castro are out tonight. Hoopa Valley tribal police officers are being investigated for those claims of excessive force. 21-year-old Floyd Jones III was arrested for loitering on Saturday, August 13th. Now, as Sophie Lincoln reports, the Bureau of Indian Affairs is investigating the officers who arrested him.
Can I get up by myself so you don't got to pull me up?
On August 13th, Floyd Jones III was arrested by Hoopa tribal police officers for violating Tribal Ordinance Title 43, which prohibits loitering and trespassing on tribal, residential, or business properties on the Hoopa Valley Indian Reservation. Jones says he and a few friends were at a parking lot outside of an event they were attending when Police Chief Rolando Ramos approached them.
He's like, you can go over to the motel and sit there. And I was like, wait, isn't this our res, bro? I was like, you're on our res. I was like, isn't that our store?
According to Jones, Ramos named various different reasons when asked why he was arresting him and called him drunk and high, though Jones says none of this was true.
You can test my alcohol level, and I only took a sip.
Jones says there was no reason for him to be arrested and the actions taken by officers were excessive.
He put his knee right on my neck.
Jones says he was not resisting the arrest when Ramos grabbed him and put him on the ground. And Jones's mother, Delilah, says she tried to report the incident to tribal leaders and to the tribal council, but since no one has responded to her locally, she decided to take the issues to a national level and report it with the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
We want my son taken care of. The tribe did him wrong, and this man did my son wrong also.
Due to the seriousness of these allegations, I reached out to Ramos multiple times via phone to get his side of the story and learn more about the allegations, but I didn't receive a call back. I also emailed the police department questions such as why this case was forwarded to a federal agency and what this case could mean for police community relations moving forward, but did not receive a response back there either.
And that was Sophie Lincoln reporting. Anyone with more information or video footage of the arrest should email the address on your screen, or you can call the Hoopa Valley Police Department at the phone number below. Hoopa Valley Tribal Police Chief Rolando Ramos is breaking his silence on the investigation into claims he and other officers used excessive force in a recent arrest. This after the investigation by the Bureau of Indian Affairs was announced earlier this week. Good evening and thank you for being here for North Coast News at 6 on this Friday. I'm Michael Patterson. The arrest was captured on video and has begun circulating online. ABC 23's Sophie Lincoln spoke to Jones and his family earlier this week about the excessive force that they claim Ramos used in the arrest. And after trying to reach Ramos via phone and email on Wednesday, she finally received a response last night. Sophie, good evening. Tell us more.
Well, Michael, Ramos ended up responding via email to a series of questions I had sent him. You can see behind me the entire document he provided. These questions surrounding the arrest itself, the investigation, and other recent controversies Ramos and his department have been involved in. On Saturday, August 13th, 21-year-old Floyd Jones III was arrested on charges of loitering and trespassing at the Lucky Bear Casino parking lot. In an email, Ramos did not provide any additional information about what led up to the arrest or these charges, though Jones says he was given different reasons from Ramos for his arrest.
I asked him, I was like, what's the cause of the arrest? And he looked at me and said, I talk too much.
Regarding the investigation, Ramos did not provide any additional information beyond the press release that announced that the Bureau of Indian Affairs would be investigating the incident on Tuesday. He did, however, mention that people have the right to submit formal complaints when they believe improper conduct has occurred. Jones's mother, Delilah Jones, says she tried to submit such a report.
I told him I just want a complaint so I could fill it out and turn it back into you. And he said he didn't have a sheet to do a formal complaint for me to write it.
Delilah says she was ultimately able to file the complaint form, but after receiving no response from the police or the tribal council, she decided to take her concerns to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, prompting them to open the investigation. Now, this is not the first time that Ramos has found himself under scrutiny in the 4 months he has served as chief of police. Just last month, Chief Ramos found himself in the center of another controversy after he knowingly provided false information in a press release. Despite this, Ramos said that he believes he is being transparent and accountable, saying, quote, I believe that I am providing greater transparency than has historically been provided, which has been well received by most of the community. However, with greater transparency and greater community involvement, it is inevitable that some controversies will arise. In response to the questions I had about training for his department to ensure they are not using excessive force during arrests, he wrote that his officers continually train and discuss how to exercise their authority without resorting to using force. There were multiple questions I had sent Chief Ramos that he would not answer, saying only that the Bureau of Indian Affairs hasn't reached any conclusions in their investigation yet, so he is unable to speculate. We will post the full responses on our website. Michael, back to you.
All right, good follow-up there. Sophie Lincoln live for us in our newsroom tonight. Sophie, thank you.